Hi everybody, it's meteorologist Joe Cioffi here on this Thursday night, the last day of the month of May 2018. We are a couple of minutes past the hour of 7 o'clock Eastern Time, and I just want to welcome everybody to my YouTube channel. I just want to just say a couple of things right off the bat. I added a video to one of my playlists, the instructional playlist, and that is the summer special that we worked on here, where I work on my Monday through Friday job at FiOS 1 News. It's called the Summer of 18, and we talk about the upcoming summer ahead. Myself, my colleagues, Joe Rayo is there, along with my colleagues Brian Fitzgerald, who's also my boss, and we've got Jeff Banson, Addison Green, Brittany Borer. So the six of us helped to put this together, and you can watch it in its entirety. It airs tonight at 7:30 if you are on the FiOS 1 News system. If you live in parts of Long Island, New Jersey, and the Hudson Valley, you'll be able to see it, but you can also watch it right here on my YouTube channel. The other thing I want to mention is, for those of you who are on Long Island, Saturday, I will be at the Middle Country Library in Center Reach at 10:30 a.m. Till noon. That is right in central Long Island. It's about 2 miles north of MacArthur Airport. It's exit 61 on the Long Island Expressway. You go 2 miles north, you make a right on Middle Country Road, and you make the first left on Eastwood Boulevard, and the library will be on your left. That's at 10:30 a.m. Saturday. I'll be there till at least noon, and we'll be talking about the upcoming hurricane season and any other weather questions you may have. And by the way, I'm not 100% sure, but I am going to see if I can live stream that library presentation here on YouTube. So I'll let you, well, I may not even be able to let you know. It will come up if that's the case at 10:30 in the morning, and they usually run about an hour and a half or so. But just want to let you know about that. And the other last thing I just want to mention is that you may notice that there's a link to Amazon on the descriptor of this live stream or on this video. I'm part of the Amazon Affiliates program. It's a great way to support my channel. If you shop on Amazon and you go through that link, if you use the search box that's there, whatever you buy, Amazon throws me back some coin. You get your stuff at the low Amazon prices that they're known for. And as I said, it's just a great way to support my channel. So I just wanted to disclose that here at the very beginning. Okay, we've got a busy weather night ahead. Severe weather seems to be front and center tonight, and you can see with the map on the left, the Storm Prediction Center's risk areas and the watch boxes, as we used to call them. They're not quite boxes anymore. In fact, the tornado watch looks like the Chevrolet emblem. But we've got a tornado watch up, in all seriousness, in southern Missouri, northern Arkansas, extending into western Tennessee and western Kentucky. That's all inside an area of slight to enhanced risk that the Storm Prediction Center has laid out for today. And you've got an overall area of marginal risk that covers much of the Ohio Valley and central Appalachians. And there was a severe thunderstorm watch for parts of southeastern Ohio into Kentucky, but that watch has since expired. So we have the remaining tornado watch that is up. Now, also out in the Rockies and Northern Plains, we have 3 severe thunderstorm watches up. There's a large area of slight risk being indicated there in the Northern Rockies and Northern Plains, and the watch boxes extend from northeastern Nevada across extreme northwestern Utah, a small corner of southeastern Oregon, and then on up through eastern Idaho, much of the state of Montana, and it looks like the western third of North Dakota. Again, all of them, that whole area under a severe thunderstorm watch, and there are 3 separate watch boxes that have been issued for those areas. And you can see the active radars that are underneath the risk areas, and they're going to continue to pick up in activity as we go through the evening hours. I'll bring up the full U.S. radar, and we can take a look at just exactly what's going on. And you can see what's going on back in the western states, where all of this is flared up. and we are just beginning to see the thunderstorms that are part of that tornado watch in northern Arkansas, in northern Arkansas, into western Tennessee and Kentucky. Then there's that lead line of storms that was in the old severe thunderstorm watch in southern Ohio and into parts of eastern Kentucky, but that has since expired. And we've got a lot of rain action going on in the state of Florida again, as we continue to see this feed of tropical moisture that's been coming up from the Caribbean, and that alleyway still remains open to some degree, not as fierce and not as loaded with moisture as it was many days ago when Alberto was running around, but nonetheless, it is problematic. And we can see that feed pretty well on the satellite picture tonight. This is on the satellite loop, I should say. And you still have that connection, that tropical connection that runs from the northwest Caribbean on up across Florida. A lot of clouds here in the northeast. We're transitioning over from a maritime air mass to some degree. It's not as cool as they usually are because we were in the 70s today in many locations. Just to the west of the coast, we are on the west side of a warm front. You have a fairly large warm sector, so that's where we have these showers and storms that are flaring up in the Ohio Valley, and then you can see what's going on up in the northern Rockies and on up into the western plains, where we've got that next run of severe weather. We should also mention, by the way, that there's a fair amount of the Mississippi Valley and then down into Texas and into the Southwest that's enjoying a lot of sunshine, hot conditions in some places, and bone dry. But at least when you compare it to the areas that are getting all the severe weather, they could use some rain, and a lot of that area could use some rain, and they're not going to get it. But you know, that's just the way the pattern is set up. Here's the overall scheme of warnings and watches and advisories. The orange that you see in Texas and in through Oklahoma, southern Kansas, those are heat advisories. You've got a large area, and those are the dry area in the southwest with the red flag warnings that are up in northern Arizona, northern New Mexico, southern Colorado, and southeastern Utah. And the blue, if I'm not mistaken, it's probably got to be frost advisories that are up, but I imagine that's for higher elevations. Yeah, and then a freeze watch over elevated areas in south central Oregon. So a little bit of cool weather that's coming in over parts of the west coast of the U.S. And to the east in the yellow where that tornado watch is, we do also have, you see those spots of red, those are flash flood warnings that have been posted. Don't see a tornado. Tornado warning usually shows up in the bright red, the dark red's flash flood. The green areas are all flood watches around, covering much of the state of Kentucky, western North Carolina, northern Virginia, and the western half of Maryland. We might see those flood watches expanded a little bit in the east when this blocky signature gets underway this weekend and into next week, because you know, when we look at the total rainfalls that are being produced by the models, we're thinking that 2 to as much as 4 inches of rain could fall. But I just want to emphasize that this is going to be spread out over a 5-day span, so it's not going to be coming in a very short period of time, so that actually could alleviate some flooding issues. So I'm bringing up the upper air. This is for Sunday morning at 8 a.m. And I just want to illustrate the problem here in the eastern part of the United States, in that you've got this blocking pattern up in the North Atlantic. So as a result, a lot of the energy that's coming east is going to be forced to the south. And you do have reflections of that energy shown with an upper low, a small cutoff low actually, sitting over Chesapeake Bay with an extending trough out into the Atlantic. So there's going to be some kind of surface low that's going to develop here out in the ocean. And as a result, you're just going to have this kind of continuous northeast flow or east-northeast flow of moist air. Now, central and northern New England may actually wind up being in a pretty good spot here for a while. There's going to be dry air that's going to try to work southward, much like it did yesterday, but this time around it's only going to probably make it down to about central New England, and everybody else is going to stay overcast with some rain, particularly as you favor coastal areas of southern New England and from eastern Pennsylvania, from those areas southward. There's a second trough that is being indicated from Lake Winnipeg down into the Midwest, and that eventually is going to find its way southeast. It's going to translate its way toward the coast behind the first weather system, and I will bring you the upper air with regards to that, and then I'll show you what happened, how we get there. But what I'm going to put up now on the paint box is the upper air for Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. And this is very energetic here, if the GFS is correct, showing a wrapped up little cutoff low off the New Jersey coast. And on this run, at least, it actually shows a somewhat deep surface low trying to get to just southeast of Montauk, south of Cape Cod during Tuesday morning. It actually produces a small area with a tight pressure gradient, so it would suggest that maybe the wind might actually pick up for a little while Monday night into Tuesday. This is going to bring in also more moisture and more rain. I want to emphasize that at least for my neck of the woods, from eastern Pennsylvania across New Jersey to southern New England, southeastern New York State and Long Island, the weather from Saturday right into at least Tuesday and maybe even into Wednesday of next week, it's not going to be raining every waking minute. There are going to be stretches, and some rather long ones, where we may just be sitting in cloudy skies or perhaps some patchy light rain or drizzle, and that'll be about it. But there will be some areas that get into some steady rain for a number of hours. So there will be a bit of variability here. I don't want to make it sound like it's an absolute 96-hour washout, because that's just not going to be the case. But you know, there are going to be dry periods in here, and hopefully the dry periods will come at a time that helps you out if you've got outdoor activity. But you know, I just want to emphasize, at least for early June, this is a pretty interesting spring pattern, to say the least. It's actually, you know, fairly chilly because of the fact that you've got this cold upper low the way it is, and another strong cold upper low that is dropping down southeastward north of Lake Superior. We've been we've been used to ridges flying up in the east a bit more frequently, but we seem to be in a position since late February where we keep getting these troughs in the east with only some minor interruptions, and that pattern remains unbroken. So this is going to keep temperatures generally below average, especially where there's cloud cover and rain. That's where you're going to see the biggest temperature anomalies. You do have this continued ridge here on up this upper high that's sitting in Mexico, just south of El Paso, and that ridge builds up through the northern plains. So this whole area is going to stay basically dry, and then you have troughing along and just off the west coast. You've got energy that comes in from off the west coast and inland, so that's going to keep things on the cool and probably wet side in the northwestern part of the U.S. Going into next week. So pretty, you know, this is kind of more of a mid-spring pattern than a late spring pattern that we're seeing. It's interesting that we're getting that, and the fact that this is all being generated by the blocky nature that we have in the upper air. And if I'll bring up, I'm going to pull up the North American view here of the upper air, so you can kind of see this blocky signature that occurs. And I'm going to go back to the date in between the two I showed you. So this is for this is going to be for Monday morning, and we'll take it up here. So this is the view for Monday morning, and again, we're looking at the flow at 18,000 feet in the atmosphere. So just to break it down for you, just remember always that winds counterclockwise around lows, clockwise around highs. And I'll show you where all the lows are. So you've got one low out here at 50 and 50, which when I say 50 and 50, that's 50 north, 50 degrees north, 50 degrees west. That when you have a blocking a block that builds over toward Greenland, oftentimes it causes lower pressures when you go south of there toward the Canadian Maritimes and points east. So when you have that, what we call the 50-50 low in the wintertime, that's what snow lovers look for in a blocking signature when it comes to storms along the East Coast. Because when you have that there really isn't any room for anything to move eastward. The presence of this system here, okay, this system that I've just circled in red, the presence of that system there prevents those systems to its west from moving in the normal west to east fashion. So they're going to go basically to the path of least resistance, and you're going to wind up with the system that follows it, and I'm going to put that in this kind of orange-brown color here. And it doesn't seem to want to I want to kind of recenter it just a little bit. There we go. So it's going to force this system here to basically go to the path of least resistance, which is east or southeast, and head toward the coast. And this is where you wind up getting surface lows that find their way east of Delaware, south of Long Island, and those can be problematic in the wintertime, certainly, for my area. In the springtime, they are problematic in a different way because they keep you socked in with clouds for sometimes days at a stretch and a continuous feed of moisture. So you wind up with periods of rain that could last over a couple of days. And this is the block itself. When you look where it is, this is the upper high that's causing all of this. You've got an upper high that's over Iceland, and the ridge is pushing into Greenland. So this is more of well, it's attempting to be a west-based block. It's centered further west than being a block, say, over Scandinavia. This is trying to push into Greenland. So it's creating this rather dynamic pattern in the eastern part of the United States. So it's from this system that you see here that in the upper atmosphere that's going to generate some kind of surface low out just offshore, and it's what the model on this particular run winds up deepening into a low off the coast of New Jersey, south of Long Island. And this, again, this is probably for Monday night and Tuesday. So we'll take that GFS map now, and we'll show you what it's doing on this run. There is some support from the other models. I don't, in terms of specifics at this point, I don't, I'm not 100% sold on which way this is all going to go, but certainly you got to pay a little bit of attention with the way the upper air is and with this blocking, that you might wind up with some rain and wind, at least for a little while going forward. So first things first, we transition, and I'm speaking specifically to my area now, as we transition over into a warm and humid air mass for Friday. Weather front moves on through. Now, up to the north, up near James Bay in southeastern Canada, that's where you have this big high pressing down all those isobars that run through upstate New York, north and west of there. That's all a northeast flow coming in from Greenland and Labrador, and then extending south and west of there. And if you watch what happens along the East Coast, a little low forms there. This is now for early Sunday morning. There's not a whole lot of rain ahead of it. To the north of it, there is some, but you certainly have an easterly flow there. That low actually kind of hangs around, and here comes that second wave of energy to create another low that forms on Monday, and you certainly get into some rain here on Monday. And there's your little, that's what I was talking about here. If the way the GFS has it pictured, with the structure of that upper low, that you could wind up with, for this time of year anyway, a bit of an intensifying little surface low east of New Jersey, south of Cape Cod. And before anybody asks, no, this is not going to be tropical, okay? So let me just make that clear. But, you still could wind up, if this is correct, there'll probably be some gales. Again, I don't know if that's going to be the case, but we'll have to see if subsequent runs go along this route. The European was kind of doing this idea yesterday and last night, although the model seems to pick out on a different low. It has more of a blocky signature lasting longer, which the GFS kind of disagrees with. it brings another weather system through, and this is where things start to finally move along, so that you get some genuine improvement here toward the end of next week, if that's correct. I'll just show you the European from this afternoon. And let me back it up here. So this is starting from Friday morning. You can the colors represent, by the way, the upper flow, okay, and the isobars are what you see in the thin blackish lines. But there's your low on Sunday, sitting just east of the Delmarva Peninsula, with the high to the northeast and a little bit of a gradient, but not much of one. And then it takes that low by Monday morning and has it east of Atlantic City, 1,001 low south of Long Island. So if that's right, there's going to be some solid rain here Sunday night into Monday. The GFS kind of has it for Monday night into Tuesday, because the European takes then the next system and drops it down, but it drops it down a little bit further to the north than the GFS does. So by Wednesday morning, by Tuesday, where the GFS, but it's not a huge difference, by the way. The European has the low sitting right over Long Island, whereas the GFS had it more southeast of Cape Cod, and it's a day later on the European than on the GFS, and then out it goes. So it's a matter of how the models handle all these interacting short waves and the timing going forward. This is all going to be important to the forecast as we head toward the weekend. So I'm going to bring this up front and center, bring myself up front and center. Thanks everybody for being here tonight. So there you go, and let me come to the board. We've got a nice audience tonight. It's good to see everybody here, all you regulars. Let's see. AMD Ryzen fan, I hope the Midwest has a warm summer. When the Midwest has a warm summer, then the Northwest and Northeast and the mountains will be warm. Only the South will have below average cloudy weather. Well, depending on one thing or another, I don't know how this is all going to come out in the long term. I really don't. A lot of folks have asked me, and I've always said I don't have a very good grasp of the long range, and nothing has changed in the last few months. Let's put it that way, okay? I still don't have a grasp of the long range and where this is going to go. I kind of just look to the time frame that the models provide, and anything else beyond, even that's an educated guess after the 7th day. So I just don't see the point of going out further. That, I think, is better left to those who kind of understand the long range a bit better than I do, and I admittedly do not. Mirtha Gunther, now I see what you were saying, as you brought up about the endurance and of the system. You're referring to Alberto. Remarkably, Alberto wound up actually being classified as a tropical system as it was moving inland, and it went from being subtropical to tropical as per the Hurricane Center. And in fact, I was reading Levi Cowan of Tropical Tidbits, whose maps we use, and he's very generous to allow us to use them. Thank you, Levi. And you should go to his site, tropicaltidbits.com. It's absolutely free, and you can look at all the weather models you want. But he made a point to say that when you look at the numbers in terms of the profile of the atmosphere in and around where Alberto was moving through western Indiana and on up into Michigan, the air there was supportive of a tropical cyclone, believe it or not. It was that moist. And you got to remember, we had this trough in the Tennessee Valley down into the Gulf states that was there for well over a week and a half to almost 2 weeks. And the air in the eastern part of the U.S., but particularly when you go from the southern parts of the Ohio Valley southward, was saturated with tropical air. So it shouldn't be a big surprise. Cash 082, thank you so much for hitting Super Chat. And you're watching from a cruise ship south of Puerto Rico right now. Wow, that's awesome. Thanks for doing that. Please, stay safe. I hope you're having some great weather there, because if you're going to be out on a cruise ship southeast of Puerto Rico, let there be good weather, and stay out of that Yeah, actually, in that part of the Caribbean, you're much better off than when you're in the Northwest Caribbean, where we still have that very moist feed that's coming in. Chris Alley wants to know, my buddy Chris Alley wants to know if we're ever going to get nice weather for more than 2 days in a row. I can tell you, Chris, it's not going to happen now, and we got to get rid of this block. If we can get rid of this blocky signature and going to something a little bit more resembling an average west to east flow, then yeah, we could probably string a couple of nice days in a row. But it's going to be a really, really tough thing to do here with the pattern that we have. David Schwartz, as I said at the beginning, I'll say it again, and thank you for a reminder. I will be at the Middle Country Library in Center Reach, New York, which is in central Long Island, on Saturday at 10:30 a.m. So if you are on Long Island and the weather is preventing you from doing what you would like to do, then by all means, head out to the library at 10:30 a.m. But if you can't, I can't promise that I will succeed, but I am going to attempt to live stream it on Saturday. At least that'll be my experimentation in doing that. So I'm going to give it a try. And they usually run about an hour and a half. So you're going to have some endurance, I guess, to last through the whole hour and a half. I hope I get to keep you guys all awake if you do decide to join. But again, no promises. I'm going to definitely giving it a try. Tornado 1994, chasing storms requires plenty of flawless driving skill and careful meteorology. Absolutely, and a lot of guts, and I am not someone that likes to go chasing them around. So I leave that for those who are really into it. Timothy Veltman, nice to see you here tonight. You have to write a discussion on a recent landslide, mudslide somewhere in the world. Do I know of any recent that I can look into? Landslide, mudslide. Oh. Nothing comes to mind at the moment. I mean, you've got all that stuff going on in Hawaii with the lava and everything, with the eruption of the Kilauea volcano. I can't think of where there's been some mudslides that have caused issues. That's a tough one. I'll dig around, see if I can find anything, but I don't. Nothing comes to the front of my head at the moment. Anomalous Howard, is that blocking pattern always accompanied by cloudy conditions over the eastern to middle North America? I assume you mean the mid-Atlantic states, or can they exist with a less cloudy air mass over that region? It depends. Anomalous Howard, it depends on the orientation of the block. If you have a negative value to the North Atlantic oscillation, if the block is very strong, what it can often do is, and we saw this happen to some degree yesterday, when the block is strong enough, it can force dry air to come down from northern New England and move down into at least the northern part of the mid-Atlantic states and shift the overcast zone further south. Okay, so if you get a super strong block, you could have everything way south. So you eventually, in other words, the big high to the north builds further south, but still stays to your north, so you get a northeast wind, but it's a dry northeast wind, less over the open water, so there's less of a maritime influence. So the answer to your question is yes, it is possible. It depends on how everything is set up and oriented. Johnny Quest, here in Western Virginia, we had 8 inches of rain yesterday. Radar said 6 today. I guess it's the combo of the tropical air, slow movement of storms in the mountains in this madness. Yes, and that's going to continue through the weekend and into next week because of what's happening. So don't be surprised if you get additional rainfall here over the next several days. As you know, this what I've been calling the evil blocking pattern. And yes, anomalous Howard, there's going to be cloudiness somewhere. So if you're going to have the stronger block, you're going to shift things southward. I don't have allergies per se, but there is some dust in the room, David Schwartz, and that's why I'm rubbing my eyes every once in a while. I also get a little bit tired. Here's something for you, Timothy Veltman. There was a landslide in North Carolina a few days ago in Lake Tacoma, okay? So you might want to check that. And they said there were some mudslides the other night in the mountains of North Carolina. So there you have it. So Mind of an Empath, thank you for that information, Timothy. So check that out there. mudslides in the mountains of North Carolina. So maybe there's something there for you that you could do your assignment on. And mudslides in Virginia as well. So there you go. James Vitale has joined the board a little bit late tonight. And massive landslide. Here's another one for you, Timothy. All the YouTube buddies are coming on to help you here. Massive landslide in Ulter Glacier Hunzus. I'm having trouble reading that. But you might want to just check that out as well. Okay, so let's wrap it up here. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. We had a nice sized audience. So let me just once again say, for those of you who are interested, check out on my channel under the instructional videos. I put up the summer special, the Summer of 18, it's called, that was produced here where I work at FiOS 1 News. I'm there with my colleagues, and we are basically going over what we think is going to happen this summer for the Hudson Valley, for Long Island, and for New Jersey. And I speak to hurricanes. Those of you who are into astronomy, Joe Rayo has a very interesting piece on astronomy and what you might expect to see in the night sky during the summer months. And we have some of my other colleagues talking about severe weather, about flooding, about boat and beach safety. And then there's a roundtable discussion at the in the program as well with all of us. So you've got six meteorologists sitting there side by side, all trying to come to some sort of conclusion. So take a look at that. If you're not on the FiOS 1 News system, if you're not on the FiOS 1 system with Verizon, you can certainly take a look at it here on my YouTube channel. So again, thank you very much for those of you who've been on tonight. Plan of attack tomorrow is probably to do a live stream again at 7 o'clock Eastern time, roughly. And I'm going to be, again, we'll see what we can do as far as live streaming that video, that library presentation that I have at the Middle Country Library on Long Island for this coming weekend on Saturday. That's Saturday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. All right, folks, take care. We will see you tomorrow.